Thank you. Good morning. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. I'm excited about the day. I want to say welcome on behalf of the MIT Puerto Rico Economy Project. I do not want to steal time from the panel. It's going to be a fantastic panel. So I'll just take 30 seconds to say it is a project that is institute-wide. That's very important. So it covers a variety of different dimensions of economic revitalization and potential for transformation of the island, from the so-called production economy, which is another way of saying advanced manufacturing, R&D and commercialization, and of course, at the heart of it, entrepreneurship, which is extremely important for the island and indeed every economy on the planet. So we could not be more pleased to be co-sponsoring this. I want to congratulate the student organizers. They've done all the heavy lifting, I promise you. And I also want to say a thank you. You joined us a bit later today. Thank you to John Borshak. John has been our sponsor. It's really his energy and his vision that launched the Puerto Rico Economy Project. He's a terrific learning partner with us and embraces that spirit of learning and innovation and experimentation that's in the DNA of MIT, of course, is a proud alum. So that works well too. And John will be with you later, and we'll look forward to hearing his remarks. I want to say a big thank you to him for making a lot of our work possible. And Bryan, thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Xavier. As you can see, projects like this one are really amazing, and we're really happy to have them here. So before we get started with the first panel, I'd like to go through with you guys the schedule of today, what we will be doing today. Basically, the conference is divided into 3 main panels. The first one is going to be, we're going to be having a series of very successful entrepreneurs that have built a company either in Puerto Rico, or maybe for Puerto Rico, or in a way related to Puerto Rico. And they'll be sharing their experiences and starting from scratch. What are the challenges, the opportunities, and maybe incentives of doing the whole process at Puerto Rico. So that's going to be exciting. Then we're going to break for lunch. The students and you guys are free to have lunch anywhere on campus that you like. When we come back, we're going to start the second panel, which is going to be based on what is exactly the VC scene in Puerto Rico, or basically, more general, what are the resources that these entrepreneurs have and can consider right now in the island to help start up their company. And then we're gonna have a coffee break right outside the room. That's a great opportunity to start discussing what panelists have said and what ideas we have discussed so far with your peers. And then when we come back, we're going to have a keynote speech by John Borshak, the one Xavier just talked about. We're really excited to have him. He's a very intelligent person. He's the founder of the Foundation of Puerto Rico, which has been helpful in many ways. A little bit more about that later. And then after that, we wrap up with our third and final panel, which is going to be from MIT alumni that are right now either working in a company of their own at Puerto Rico or somewhere related also. So again, the people are amazing. We're really excited to have them here join us. And then after that, after we finish all the panels, we're going to have a very nice networking session upstairs on the 4th floor for you guys to possibly meet the speakers. It's a great opportunity not only to meet the speakers and moderators, but also to connect among ourselves as well. So make sure you go to that. And then we wrap up with a very nice Puerto Rican dinner that we've organized in the cafeteria room. Make sure you get your Puerto Rican food. So that's that. Again, we're really excited to have this. I bet I can talk on behalf of the team that it's been a lot of work, but we're really excited to work it, and we hope you really enjoy it. So thanks for being here. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming the first panel. Nieves will be our moderator. She has a degree in communication and has actually anchored several TV series in the past. So again, we're really excited to have her as well. So please join me in welcoming the first panel and Nieves.
So, can everyone hear me? Wonderful. So let's switch this a bit, because I have a feeling that someone is operating on Puerto Rican time and is not going to be here really early. So how about we have all the panelists come and join me? We're basically going to just sit here, have a conversation. And I'm really going to be counting on you guys for questions at the end. So let me, how about, okay. My name is Nieves, and I did a degree in communication. I also hosted a TV show for Telemundo in Portada. It was a local community TV show. We basically dealt with issues of mostly Puerto Rican community in Philadelphia. And in between that and graduating, I decided I wanted to go to Oxford, where I did a master's in evidence-based social intervention. We can talk about what that means later. You don't want to know. So basically, there's a vein and connection in between television and why I decided to go to Oxford. And it's basically it's the question, the burning question: how can I have an impact? How can I measure and understand best ways of having an impact in society? Now I work in the largest philanthropic organization in the United States that funds health and healthcare in America. It's called the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. I get paid to think about how we can invest about $400 million a year, and my team is a pioneer team. So I get to be I get to be blessed with thinking every day about how can we disrupt the broken health and healthcare system in the U.S. and that includes Puerto Rico. All right. So with that said, I want to give you a little bit of an overview. This panel is supposed to be 2 hours. It's actually already 10:14, so less than 2 hours. We're going to have an overview, conversation, talk a little bit about each of the panelists and what they do. And in the meantime, it would be wonderful if you think about those questions and write them down. There's going to be an opportunity for question and answers, about 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at this point. Also, this is being live streamed, so for our hundreds of thousands of audience right now that are live streaming and tuning in to the most exciting conference right now, please send your questions. The Twitter handle is @PRSC13, PRSC13. And follow me on Twitter if you tweet Nieves Christine. Without further ado, how about we hear from you guys? Let's hear your name, your company, and where are you based and what is it that you do?
Sure. So, first off, obviously, it's an immense honor to actually be here and have the chance to actually collaborate and meet other Puerto Ricans that are essentially studying at MIT and also connect with the Boston Entrepreneurship ecosystem, which is something that work on in Puerto Rico, and it's great to also get a chance to connect. So my name, it's Ramphis Castro, right? So I'm background in engineering and law. I'm based in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I'm born from the south side of the island, a small place called Cobián. And my company, essentially, if you're going to build your mobile apps, or native mobile apps, it's very expensive. So we essentially create a technology that makes it very easy and very accessible and very cheap for marketers and professionals in different verticals, specifically publishing and other markets, to create mobile apps. So that's essentially what we do. Right? And we use pioneer and the idea of creating native applications, right? So before this was talking about HTML5, and essentially we understood very early that it was native that was going to change for mobile. And at the time we were sort of on our own, sort of just talking to the wind, and now sort of we could say Facebook learned the hard way that native mobile application, native mobile technology is really the way forward. So that's really where the name comes from. It's what the Puerto Rican natives are called. So.
Hi, my name is Gianpaolo Pietri. I actually did my undergrad at Tufts, class of 2001. I majored in history, so when I was in your shoes, I had no idea what I actually wanted to do in life. Which is kind of interesting because now I know exactly what I want to do. I'm kind of like rushing to catch up for the lost time. I did a master's in architecture at WashU in St. Louis. I was, 3 years ago, I was designing high-rise buildings in Dubai and China and whatnot. And then I started blogging. I started basically my own blog, which evolved from blogger.com to WordPress.com to me buying a domain, my own domain, hosting it myself on GoDaddy, and and writing articles when I was at home at night while designing buildings during the day. I'd come home and write articles at night. And then that kind of took off. I ended up writing a couple of ebooks, self-publishing. I ended up quitting my architecture job to focus on my blog when I had like a big enough readership. And then a couple of business guys in PR had one of these forums, and they were talking about media in Puerto Rico and how lacking they found it in terms of the coverage that they were getting, but also how disappointed they were how they themselves were being covered. Some of these business leaders kept getting slammed in the media for apparently no good reason. And one day I get an email like, hey, Lou, we've been having these conversations about media in Puerto Rico and how bad things are, and your name came up because these guys, we want to do something about this. And we heard that you have a blog, you're blogging, so you know about this kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I know about media. I didn't know anything. As I found out. And so, yeah, sure, definitely, let's do it. And they're like, yeah, really, we're going to start an online newspaper. Yeah, hey, let's do it. Moved back to Puerto Rico. I was living in Miami at the time. Moved back to Puerto Rico, left the blog, started this online newspaper, and here I am 2 years later speaking at MIT about media. I guess that's me in a nutshell. We'll talk in more detail, I guess, when the questions come up.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. First, like Ramphis said, it's an honor to be here. I want to thank the students from MIT. I'm very excited. I'm the classic story of a born entrepreneur. At 6 years, I started my first business, a candy store at the front door of my parents, selling limber, paiko, and a gum. I did many things as a kid, but what catapulted me to business was at 16 when I became a house party DJ. So that was my first peak, and from there I started. I went to professional DJing in clubs, and I became a club DJ, then a club promoter, then a club owner, then a restaurant owner, I've had many businesses, some successful, some not. But in the nightclub business, as I told some of the guys, it's like you're a hustler. You need to hustle. You need to find ways to get people into the club, to serve more liquor, to get more profit margin, to all this stuff. You're always looking for new alternatives and new ideas. From there, we developed the first Puerto Rican youth marketing experiential marketing agency for brands that wanted to penetrate the offer consumer, the opinion leaders, So we started working with Fortune 100 companies, like Toyota, Pepsi, Ford, Bacardi, all these brands. And from there we started doing non-traditional, below-the-line marketing strategies, And in 2003, this company was built in 1996. In 2003, we were always constantly looking for new media to sell to our clients, to get better engagement with users. And we went to Spain, and we saw kids texting like crazy. We're like kids driving a moped with one hand and the other hand like texting. We're like, what is that? And there are no smartphones, feature phones. So we said like, okay, that's a future. So we started educating ourselves a little bit on mobile, and we saw the phenomenon of what was going to be mobile marketing. We bought a platform in Spain. We did a business plan. We bought a platform, and we started doing mobile marketing in Puerto Rico. We had to teach mobile operators what was mobile marketing. We had to teach them what was the business model, and we had to teach the whole Puerto Rican community how to text back then. Back then, people were like texting, the carriers were telling us texting, that's not going to work. People here use beepers. You call a call center, you tell them the message, and you send it. So that's not going to work. Nobody's going to text. Okay? Is anybody here who doesn't text? Please raise your hand, So from there, we started doing a lot of things related to more marketing, sales aggregation, more payments, content distribution, selling the ringtones back then, you know. And we've been doing that till today. Our company has grown. We exported services from Puerto Rico to already 17 countries in Latin America. And we've pivoted many times. We're not doing right now what we started doing, so we have to change business models, and technology, it changes very fast. So that's what we're currently doing.
Wonderful, thank you. Actually, Carlos, you inspired me because when you said that you were an entrepreneur since you were 6, it made me think, I mean, when I was in high school, I was selling the study guides for the finals. So is that entrepreneurial?
Yes.
All right, okay, so
well, I sold comms, $1. You know, when you took the pictures, and then you have to take the comms and throw them in a.
Yeah.
I used to take them and then sell them $2 or $1. You know,
who would buy that?
You know,
It works.
When you're into that, you do everything.
So, just a show of hands, how many of you are students? Okay, most of you. Wonderful, wonderful. So just to get a sense of the audience, that's great. Let's kick it off by taking a little bit of a step back, and I think you guys have, I'm so inspired, and I think you guys have definitely laid the land for the first question I had in mind, which is, did you think you were going to be an entrepreneur, and when did that come to mind, and what made you think, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to take on this problem?
So you were not very born. So from my perspective, it was more of a no way kind of thing. It's like what? Even though we were sort of entrepreneurial in that sense, you know, selling members and paying my way for going to Disney or things like that. I don't know. But from my end, I was like, well, be sort of engineer, work at Microsoft, do that thing. I worked at the office services team, worked on the user experience of Office, sort of came back. And I was like, I'm going to work on projects and just do that. The way that sort of came about was one is really the support, I would say, sort of pushing of sort of my dad, my mom, because in Puerto Rico there's this sort of in Puerto Rico, a lot of states, but also Puerto Rico, the engineers are sort of licensed. So he said, once I got my license as an engineer, and just like doctors and lawyers, he's like, you got to start your own thing. You got to work for yourself because I have a license. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm making it. I'm doing well. I'm sort of traveling all around the world, doing projects, etc. And sort of was pushing a lot on that side. And then it always stuck in my mind. I turned down my Microsoft offer because I wanted to sort of work on end-to-end projects in Puerto Rico. I decided that if I was going to be an engineer, I might as well be an engineer back home. So I sort of turned that down. But that number of just how large it was, sort of always kept stuck in my mind. And even though for Puerto Rico standards, it was a very, very, very high salary, I always felt like, I wasn't making sort of enough. So those two things together, sort of understanding that I could sort of run the projects, manage the clients, sort of do everything is over the course of my first year and a half, I was already sort of in charge of the projects, the teams, everyone else, and all these supervisors, managers, etc. sort of weren't around. It's sort of up to me. I was like, well, I can definitely do that. Then I saw how much they billed for me, and how much I was making someone else. And I was like, well, if I made just a fifth of what they charged for me on my own, I could sort of totally do this. So all these things sort of came to play together, and sort of I ended up doing a lot of entrepreneurship related events so that I could learn about entrepreneurship, because that sort of didn't exist back then, and specifically no product technology companies that I could sort of see, not locally. So yeah, all those things together, I said, well, I can just jump and do it, right? So little did I know, how hard it will be, but that's really how I got started.
I'm actually the opposite of an entrepreneur. Like when I was studying at Tufts, like I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do. The last thing on my mind was, how am I going to make a ton of money, or how am I going to start a business? I was actually I came to where I am now from a totally different angle. I've always thought about what it is that I wanted to do. When I was in high school, I wanted there was a I tell people, like, I've always been a communicator. I've always wanted to communicate. Like, I went from wanting to be a poet to wanting to be a filmmaker and making movies. Like, when I was 19, I was at the New York Film Academy, studying, you know, movies. I swore I wanted to be a director. Then I, like, started dealing with filmmakers, and I didn't like them, so I'm like, okay, this isn't then I gravitated towards architecture, and I saw architecture as the same thing as film, like another way to communicate, right? But instead of doing it in a kind of fake environment, why not do it in the real environment? Why not create real spaces and real moments in real life? And then so I went towards architecture, but I wasn't thinking like, hey, let's start a business, or how can I kind of do marketing. I mean, I couldn't sell, like, I don't know how to sell to this day, right? And yet I do it every day, right? But I totally had a different approach toward it, but the path just kind of kept leading me, you know, so how can I communicate, like, how can I kind of shorten that line of me communicating directly with people, sharing ideas that I have, sharing ideas that other people have, how can I, like, shorten the gap, right? So I went from film to architecture to media, you know. Then I started blogging, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to write articles, I'm going to self-publish, you know, all these ideas that I have. I could, like, try to put together a book and try to sell it to a publisher, but, you know, that's very difficult, right, to try to, like, so I was like, I'm just going to start a blog. I heard about all these bloggers having a lot of success, and that's when I started thinking, wait a minute, I can do all this stuff on my own. I don't have to kind of follow that traditional path of, you know, trying to get a publisher to sell a book or trying to get a client to, like, develop. I can design my own architecture and develop it myself, if, you know, and then kind of get people interested and raise money if I have to, or I can write my own articles, right? And when you write a blog, I mean, what better way? Like, if you can write your book, you can start a blog, write your book, the book that you've always wanted to write, through your blog articles, develop the idea, get feedback from other people, and by the time you're ready to publish, which you can just publish yourself, keep 100% of the profits. You can not only have a ton of feedback from people all over the world, you have a readership that is going to buy your book. Like when I published my first ebook, I had, you know, 10,000 readers that were like, they wanted to buy the book, right? I mean, so what better way to market your product than to kind of develop it in conjunction with your audience and create that audience through social media, through Facebook, Twitter. They're already there, the people that want to read what you have to say. So it developed organically, my kind of entrepreneurship experience.
Like I said, you know, on my, I think when I was a kid, I liked entertaining, and I wanted to try different things, and it was in my nature, being an entrepreneur. But then when I started in college, I was DJing, like house party DJ, you know, still. I started in college, I'm like, I want to retire, I want a real business, you know, I want to do a real business. So I started charging very expensive for people to tell me no, but they keep hiring me, you know, and I learned about word of mouth, and if you do things right, people are going to talk good about it, and people are willing to pay a lot of money to have you there. So I learned a couple of lessons there. I have many lessons from all these little businesses, many lessons. And but then my father was very, he helped me a lot. He pushed me, you know, he was a banker, very conservative for 30 years. But every crazy idea that I had, he was very supportive of it. He was like teaching me, you know, little things when I was a little kid. So well, at one point, I wanted to get out of DJing, and then I said, like, I want to do an internship in an advertising agency. And I called Badillo, Sachi & Sachi, and I asked for an internship, but there was no space. So at the same time, they were looking for a club DJ. I went to club DJing, but then I knew I wasn't going to be a DJ all my life or being in that industry. You know, I saw it as a stepping stone. You know, but then one day something popped up. It was a necessity. You know, I was in college, and one guy told me, "Hey, you know, party on Sunday?" I'm like, "Sunday? No." It's like Monday is a holiday. I'm like, okay. So okay, this was on Wednesday. So how everything started is like, okay, let's go party. I met a guy, which is my partner now for 15 years. I said, like, guy, let's go party on Sunday. Monday is a holiday. And we'll charge $10 at the door. We'll do flyers. So that same day, we did a flyer, PowerPoint, printed, Xerox copy, cut it, and then had that on flyers for between Wednesday to Sunday. Long story short, 600 people showed up, $10 a piece, $6,000, $3,000 each at the end of the night, 300 expenses, so we were like, okay, I think we have a business. This is the most amount of cash I've seen in my life, So that day, the following weeks, we're like, okay, I'm becoming an entrepreneur. I made good money. I met a lot of girls. I met a lot of people, and now you're a promoter, you're very popular, everybody wants to be your friend. I'm in heaven, So, and it was entertaining, So for me, being an entrepreneur, it's risky, but the thrill, the drive that you need to have, that adrenaline rush, it's really cool. So I loved it. So I believe since I was a kid, I knew, there was something in me that said, like, you're an entrepreneur. At one point I said, like, I want a real career, but then as soon as I did my first project, just do it, do something, then I realized, no, this is my path. Let's just do it,
I want us to shift gears a little bit. We've been talking generally about your experience when it comes to entrepreneurship and what do you think about being an entrepreneur, but I kind of want to bring it back to specifically Puerto Rico and specifically your current companies, or if you can illustrate with examples. How did you start your company? Were there economic incentives at the moment that you started the company? And further, and I think we can continue to talk about this, is how did you know it was the right idea to kick it off? And whoever can jump in.
Sure, I can totally start. So I had, at least on my current idea, at least on the native mobile side and on Puerto Rico in that context, I learned very early on my very first company that I did, once I quit, and the idea at the time was, well, I do, enterprise consulting for, Fortune 100 companies, so I can just go and do the same for smaller companies. That was sort of the general idea. If I could do it for really, really big companies, I could do it for small companies. And when I went to, essentially to go pitch my very first customer, healthcare, they were like, wow, all that stuff that you're saying on enterprise planning, and, gotta figuring out, like, what's the inventory and all this stuff, it's amazing, but I don't need any of that stuff. I need this. And he has some very specific, very deep inside sort of information in the insurance industry and the healthcare industry and where both of those were going. And he's like, he was sort of in his sort of late 70s. He's like, I don't really want to build sort of this company. I have this idea, I have this need. Do you want to run with this? And I decided, so I can totally build it, right? So that's what I told him. And so we built this first sort of healthcare analytics platform that they gave him sort of information on what was going on tracking on all these sort of healthcare insurance data that was out there, so that they could sort of plan and figure out what was going on and understand all this stuff. So the idea in that very first company sort of came from customers, right? So I was sort of experiencing then what we now call this lean startup stuff, right? Like actually having customer driven and really figuring out through what customers want and understanding the problems to build a company. So that one was really just sort of literally handed to me. I decided, this guy is clear that he knows, what's going on. I can build it. We can sort of do this. So that wasn't the first company in that sort of that one sort of exploded for a bunch of other reasons. I think we'll get to that. I made all my mistakes there. Bad planning, all the accounting. I thought I needed a finance guy or accounting guy because I'm an engineer. What do I know about business? Turned out to be, sort of the wrong partner, and sort of a whole host of mistakes. But the idea was sort of extremely lucrative, right? It's just like Carlos, right? I was sort of financing it by myself, and I went through all the, trying to figure out what all the government programs were, not just Puerto Rico programs, but federal programs, SDA, everything, right? I wanted to figure out and go through all those processes to kind of understand what was out there, and that's really where I learned firsthand that essentially you can't wait for anyone to sort of give you some kind of handout or help you out in terms of sort of incentives so that you do something. We learned very quickly that it was faster to have customers just give us money and for me to finance it and just drive it. And we spent around first 2 or 3 months as I was building with just burning cash. I brought all my friends to my first company, and we got that first $25,000 check from a client. And then 2 days later came, 2 more customers. We were doing $25,000 each. So first week we had, in first week of October, we had $75,000, right? Which was more in a week than I made in a year. So it's like, oh, well, this is crazy. And that's really where we're at. There's money to be made here. It's awesome. Let's sort of do this. I had, after that was excluded, I went back to consulting, did other companies in that sense. I was sort of kept a very close eye on sort of what was going on globally on technology. And my sort of business partner, he's been on the sort of open source side for a long time. I've seen what was going on, and you see as you're close with on the startup scene all the different ideas and all the things that are going on technology and all the evolving needs of companies. So there, I had seen that there was a real need. It was very expensive since we knew how to design sort of software and do software projects. It was very expensive to actually create native mobile apps because it was essentially a full-blown software development project. That's the only way you can actually do it. And that we have very, very specific expertise and multi-platforms. Like, there were a few developers that actually know one programming language and another, and we did. We had sort of been that jump. Doing some things in C++, doing some things in Sharp, doing things in, all the web stuff, back and front end. So as an engineer, I had that sort of breadth and depth, and throughout the experience, I had seen that. So together, as we sort of collaborated together on the idea sort of came about that it would be amazing to be able to make this very accessible, right? And as we touch base with customers, it made complete sense to make it accessible for them, to make it cheap to create a fully native app instead of having to do a full software development project to create an application. So that idea, that's sort of how it came about, right? My business partner was in the sort of cross-platform space for a long time, and I had seen what was going on out in the world in terms of who was doing what we were intending to do, and I knew the sort of market, I knew what the technology could do, and we sort of decided to sort of build a company around that idea.
For me, Puerto Rico has been, I've been very grateful about the idea and all the experiences there. But I say that there are two phases in my experience. First, my first business was more an SME, small, medium enterprise. And my core business is more ID innovation-driven enterprise. So they both, they're very different. And the government and the institutions help you differently, So in my first business, it was more SBA. We had a loan in one restaurant that we had, and it was the SBA that Banco Cobián helped us. Being in Puerto Rico, being a Puerto Rican there, and we had a good reputation. We did the nightclub business and all this promoted business, but we did it very responsibly. We tried to put business into nightclub business, make it like a reputable business. So everybody was like the kids of the bankers and the guys. When we said like Empire Entertainment, they're like, my kids go to your parties. It's very secure. People love it. So we had our reputation. When we went to the banks, and they like, okay, these guys are serious, these guys are successful entrepreneurs, they have a trajectory, we'll back them up, So banks were very important for us back then. The story right now with banks is different, but that helped a lot, That's what they used to loan money. After then in the current business, it was very interesting, and Gabi is going to talk about that. He's the architect of many programs that are running right now in Puerto Rico for benefits for companies, and this new tax grid that he's going to talk more later of paying only 4% if you export services from Puerto Rico to the world. It's super interesting, and then many other benefits. So right now, Puerto Rico offers economically has many offers that are very interesting. In terms of the geographical position and our cultural and socioeconomic, it's super important too, because we have a lot of influence from Europe, and we started as Spaniards, and then we have influence from North America too, and we travel a lot. We have all these influences, and we're in the middle of the Americas. So we do a lot of cross-pollination of things that happen in the US and in Europe to Latin America. And for me, it's like the McFly, what is the name of it? I don't know, I'm too old for you guys, but it's like having the DeLorean of Back to the Future, you know? You go to Silicon Valley, you come here, or you go to Amsterdam or Europe, and then you go to Latin America, and you see the future and back. So you have 2 years or 3 years in advance. You know, so being in Puerto Rico and being able to take these ideas that are being successful in the US, in the Europe, and applying them in Puerto Rico as a test market, you know, knowing about these opportunities and then going to Latin America, which is maybe 2 to 3 years behind, it's great. It's great. You know, you see the future, you know. This is changing little by little because technology is empowering all these economies and everything, and Latin America is growing huge, you know. And there are big, like Argentina is a huge technology hub right now, Chile too, but this is a huge advantage for us. Huge advantage. Also, being bilingual and going there to Latin America, in my example, we are very touchy-feely, you know, we're very loud, you know, we're like we want to, you know, meet people and talk, and you know, we go to a meeting and it's like we spend the first half hour small talk and talking about sports, beer, we get late, you know, and so Latinos, we're like that, you know, we love that, you know, so as a Puerto Rican, yeah,
I just saw some reaction to the audience.
Late. I'm sorry, okay, so
that's what I'm here for.
thank you. So, I'm just getting over it. See, so I think the island, not just geographically, but also the economic incentives, but the cultural incentives, being bilingual, are some of the benefits that have helped me a lot. And you always say, you know, Puerto Rico, everybody's like, whoa, Puerto Rico, wow, that's cool, you know, the beaches and everything. So yeah, it's really cool, you know. So I think there's a lot of things when Javi and all others talk, they're gonna go more into the economics, but I think it's been wonderful. Also, being next to your family and your friends, it's also super important, you know, because you have a support system, especially when you're an entrepreneur, that you suffer a lot, and you have to be with your dad sometime at home, and you know you need support, and you know call your friend and let's go over here and have an awful day, you know. That support system is very important, you know. So that's my experience.
Actually, to add to that, Carlos, that's very true in terms of having the advantage of having access to Latin American markets and having that be sort of natural extension. We actually did that for testing out our sort of technology in Colombia, for example. They were doing everything, mobile websites for this and Medellin and like doing things in HTML5. And we had, since we sort of obviously spoke Spanish, we could just sort of go out and say, hey, you know, you guys are doing this and you know, whatever technology you're using, we can sort of do this sort of together, help you guys out, and they see it as, you know, oh, this is like American technology, you know, American technology company, you know, you guys know what we're doing. I mean, we kind of sort of know, but really we were still sort of learning, you know, really all this stuff will work out. So that totally works, and it's very clear extension, and there's also that kind of report. You just go in and there's like it's the same kind of culture kind of thing. So it's business is a lot smooth, right? So that's just you understand what they want. You know, meetings are you know some dinners for some beers and wine or whatever. It's just part of the culture. It's was very interesting. And so we use that as well. So it's very true.
I really appreciate this, and I want to sort of go deeper into this subject of so we have an audience full of MIT students or students in the Boston area who are seeing the future, who have access to global travel, global students, global professors. Tell me more about this, because I think that if you wanted to sell all of the students in the audience to go back to Puerto Rico and be startup entrepreneurs, you know, what is the sort of the jewel, the gold mine that is the potential that we have in Puerto Rico. and as a key or kind of as an entryway also into Latin America?
So, I mean, definitely to, again, add to what Carlos was saying, and I think that is one of the key things, and Gary will talk on this, but really it's magical to be sort of outside of federal jurisdiction for tax purposes. I mean, that's just awesome. So, because you can, there's a law 73, right? And so let's say you're in Boston, you have a startup, and you stay in Boston, you have all your money in Boston and all that stuff, and you incorporate in Delaware or something. You can have a Puerto Rico subsidiary, right? Just like Microsoft has, a third of their market cap based in Puerto Rico. And all your international revenue is essentially tax-free, right? So if you move to Puerto Rico for over 181 days, not just to Puerto Rico, outside of the US, then your Puerto Rico source income is also tax-free. So your dividend income is tax-free. So you can use that money to reinvest in your Boston startup, right? So that money comes back to the Boston entrepreneurship sort of community to actually help it grow. Which is obviously in this market it's sort of very difficult. But then we have, and I have, access to obviously the universities in Puerto Rico where we sort of produce engineers, Fortune 100 engineers, NASA engineers, all those guys, come also from the University of Puerto Rico at Nieves, right? So which is where I'm from, and all my friends. And that's why I have a sort of Pars t-shirt. They just got acquired. My friends were there, so we're like celebrating like the team that's sort of acquired. We sort of celebrate for the team, and there are Puerto Rico engineers there. So we have all these sort of talents. So you come from the Texas, but we also have talent there for us, and we have sort of direct access to the Latin American sort of market, but also the Hispanic market in the U.S. At least for us, right? We have sort of friends, and we can do that. So that's touching on the law, specifically in the talent and all this stuff. But in terms of the technology, I mean, you can grow your company either from Puerto Rico with your access to the contacts that you guys have access to here. I mean, you have just access to all that technology, all that support, etc. But then with our relationship also with Puerto Rico, you can also sort of grow together, right? Which is something that is way more interesting. So that would be sort of where the goal is sort of hiding out, one of the bridge between sort of both spaces that one or the other.
Yeah, I agree with what they're both saying. Particularly what he was saying before. I mean, I think Puerto Rico is a great launching pad. I don't think you should ever start a business in Puerto Rico thinking, I'm going to start a business in Puerto Rico for Puerto Ricans. I mean, you have such an amazing opportunity starting in PR. There are a ton of incentives. I mean, there are even incentives where like you can operate your business rent-free for 3 years. The government will basically pay your rent. They'll pay like part of your employees' salaries. So there are a ton of incentives, but forget about that. I mean, in terms of like audience, like he said, I mean, it's a perfect gateway to Latin America, or like Ramphis said, this is something that's becoming increasingly important. We're starting to see it in political campaigns, in the news, is that Hispanic market in the U.S. I mean, that market is becoming so important. And those people, like, they may speak English in the workplace, but when they go home, they're speaking Spanish. So, I mean, there's such an amazing opportunity. There's 55 million of them. They're having an increasing share in advertising, in the advertising market. Every year, it's becoming exponential. You've seen like the ads with like the Taco Bell, like the Spanish language, like ad, Toyota doing Spanish language. You're seeing those ads in like mainstream networks, and CNN and whatnot. That market is there. It's ready to be tapped. It's ready to go. So if you're starting a business in PR, I would start. I started Yasta in Puerto Rico because, first of all, I was kind of asked to do it, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then I looked at the numbers, and yeah, this makes a lot of sense. But the whole point was to start there and then branch out. Right? We're talking with people now in Panama to do like Yasta in Panama. Yasta in the Dominican Republic, and that's just the beginning. I mean, there's Yasta Colombia, Yasta Venezuela, Yasta US. I mean, it's infinite because you have both. You have Hispanics in the US, and you have this whole world in Latin America that really is actually pretty much untapped. I mean, there's so many things that are happening here in the US that are not happening there. I mean, you can literally take a business that's already done here in the U.S. and just say, I'm just going to do that, but in Spanish, and just do it. I'm actually kind of doing something similar. I'm launching a new application where people can do their appointments online with doctors. And they have that in the U.S. It's called Zaca, right? I bought a Spanish language domain. It's called Zacacita, Spanish language domain. Spanish, everything is in Spanish, and we're doing it in Puerto Rico with Puerto Rican doctors. There you go. You have business. I mean, the potential is infinite, right? And you don't have to be so creative about what it is that you're doing. It's more about what market are you tapping into, which is the Hispanics, and they're completely underserved in so many areas.
So there seems to be this interesting, maybe it's a false dichotomy, but I'm kind of thinking of this, there's all these things that we don't have in Puerto Rico that are happening in the US, and anyone can just say, okay, I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to make a business. But then, and then there's I have an idea that no one has created. And do you guys fluctuate between the two? Do you see that? Are those two classes of entrepreneurs? Can you speak to that?
Yes. It's like, what I say is like, there's either you build a business or you build a startup. So a business is just a great idea that is working, that is profitable, and it's being successful elsewhere. So you have the opportunity and to do that cross-pollination from US to Latin America. Then you have the startup, which is this hypothesis or this idea that you build, and you can use Puerto Rico as a test market, which is the first thing that you do when you start a startup, do this pilot and validate all the assumptions, that hypothesis with customers there, So there are two main focus, and I think the island serves well for both. Like Ramphis said, we have great schools of engineering. As a matter of fact, I don't know if Michael is going to speak about that, but Colegio West at 15. So we have great schools too there, and talent is good too. Not just the education, but the attitude of people. People from Puerto Rico are resilient. And they're like they're very competitive. If not, look at a boxing match or a basketball or baseball, you see how competitive it is. So I believe you can do both ways.
And I think this is fascinating because I think one of the reasons that I'm really interested in entrepreneurship and invention and innovation is that clearly there's huge markets, there's a huge potential in Puerto Rico, there's need, and I think all of us here come from seeing things in Puerto Rico and feeling, wow, as you said, I'm living in the future, I go back and I'm decades behind. And do you think of entrepreneurship and what do you think it as a solution to, and I don't want to come up with silver bullets here, but do you see it as one of the main solutions to a lot of the social ills in Puerto Rico? Can you talk about specifically about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you say in Spanish, it's tough because that's really, you're kind of preaching to the choir. So entrepreneurship and technology, specifically the mix of both, that's really, there's no such thing as kind of silver bullets. That's really kind of a big piece of it, because you can't obviously kind of do the same kind of things and expect different results, right? You're mentioning healthcare. You can't sort of say, well, we're going to build more hospitals, and kind of think that's going to figure out how the way health, universal health. So entrepreneurship really gives you the opportunity to kind of really understand what the problems are, right? And make sure if you're going to do Puerto Rico or any market, it's really about understanding the Puerto Rico needs. Even if you live in the future, we're all living kind of in the future, when you come back, you got to understand really what those needs are. And it's really through this process of entrepreneurship and customer development and really understanding, those problems, that then you're going to really build solutions and innovate to sort of provide solutions that solve those specific problems, whether it be sort of diagnostics tools or portable ultrasounds and healthcare or whatever it is. You got to understand sort of what those needs are, and entrepreneurship is sort of really the sort of say the science or the way to actually go about understanding how to build new things, right, to solve sort of problems of the future, and Puerto Rico problems specifically. So if you have, there are challenges in Puerto Rico for education. There's an education technology startup that essentially sort of uses sort of cryptographic techniques to sort of figure out how to customize education for each student. So that comes about through innovation, but really understanding a lot of how the public school system is broken in Puerto Rico, but not just Puerto Rico. It's not just a Puerto Rican problem. There's sort of healthcare technology startups in Puerto Rico that again sort of revise part of the intellectual property that I created in my first company to actually do sort of healthcare analytics to manage the groups, sort of the group of doctors and all this stuff. So definitely entrepreneurship is key. Not to talk about actually they create essentially all the jobs, right? So new firms create all the jobs, right? We know that now, and there's sort of a lot of data on really how that sort of operates, and so it means more people on the front end to actually create new things and really test out sort of the ideas, your passions, go after that. And that's really through entrepreneurship. You can't really expect to go to sort of Fortune 1000 company and expect to necessarily build the next sort of hugely disruptive sort of technology. That's not generally how it sort of kind of works. Now there are some companies that do that extremely well, right? General Electric has exceptional sort of in the way they sort of spin out those ideas. But entrepreneurship definitely gives you that space to really innovate, right? Understand what you're going to do and then really innovate and do something different, which is a big opportunity for our universities around the world, specifically if you're doing some kind of research to kind of figure out how that solves problems in Puerto Rico or anywhere else and spin that out.
I believe right now, first I want to clarify something. When I said Back to the Future and all this stuff, I don't feel Puerto Rico is behind, the other way around. I think we're in a great position and we have an advantage when I read it more into Latin America. Okay? So I think there's an economic development plan for Puerto Rico, and one essential part is entrepreneurship. And it's very important. And there are many initiatives going around right now that some of them are integrated, some are not integrated. But they're pushing forward that. There's a great initiative from a friend of ours that is right now in the government, which is the CIO of the government, that he just declared that every government agency needs an API. And he wants to share the data, of all the government agencies through an API for developers to develop software for the government to help the government improve their services. That's huge. That's a huge opportunity for all entrepreneurs in the technological area that can build apps to improve government processes and everything. I haven't heard of one human being that hasn't criticized their government because of how long it takes for things to happen. So right now the government in Puerto Rico is saying, no, we're going into tech, we are opening an API, we want all you guys to develop for us software. That's incredible, and that's a great opportunity for students in MIT. And students everywhere, So I think definitely entrepreneurship, it's a very powerful tool for the economic development of any country. In Puerto Rico, well, it's incredible.
It's actually great that you mentioned that part, and just a quick thing is that on June 6th, there will be sort of a tech summit in Puerto Rico. There will be challenges put out by the government of Puerto Rico based on all this open data initiatives, right? So, we want, better understanding of the mapping of healthcare data around the island. Well, if you guys are interested in certain topics that are based on those topics and you're thinking about building companies around some of these ideas, then really participating and doing a hackathon from right here in MIT, doing a hackathon here based on the challenges in Puerto Rico is a great way to go about, really doing a deep dive of what's going on in Puerto Rico and helping out, really, right? But then building a business around solving those problems.
So what is the information for the audience and so that they can go in?
Sure. I'll look up the link. But essentially it's a tech summit, and you can go to hackerleague.org and go June 6th, and you can see the information for the hackathon that is in place, right? So hackerleague.org, and you can find it's like an Eventbrite for hackathons, and you can find the hackathon that are listed and just list yourself as a participant. The rules and the challenge and the data sets will come up over the next few weeks, and you can start to play with that.
That's great. That's great.
We're actually as part of my media company, Yasta, the artist that is organizing a tech conference as well. But we were going to do it in 2013. We decided to push it back to early 2014. We're having a tech conference called Boundless. We're going to do it every year starting in 2014. Every year after that, we're going to look at all kinds of tech people together. Have keynote speakers coming in from Silicon Valley, you know, all different places in the world. We're going to have a hackathon as well. We're going to have, you know, workshops, entrepreneurship workshops, you know, everything from coding to financials, how to start a business, which I think will be a great opportunity as well for people who are interested in doing business in Puerto Rico. I keep hearing these guys talk, and I mean, I have so many things that I want to say about all these issues, but well, in terms of entrepreneurship itself, I mean, it's really kind of, sometimes I'm conflicted. I mean, it's really easy to be an entrepreneur. Like, it's really easy. Like, you should never start a business because you want to make money. You should never start a business because you want to kind of like, I mean, you should do it. Going back to kind of the social aspect, I mean, that is really what we're doing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not serving a need, if you're not kind of like providing a basic service, then what are you doing? Why are we doing this? We are doing this for the social good, no matter what you do, right? Like, you're always trying to make people's lives better, and the easier, like the simpler you do it, the better, right? Like, to me, it all comes down, like, there are 5 kind of like categories that I'm always thinking about. And if you look at the top companies, they all fit into one of these categories, right? You know, it's either transportation, how do we move from point A to point B? That had its heyday, right, with the invention of the airplane, locomotives, whatnot. Food and shelter, which was, you know, the agricultural revolution. We've already kind of covered these categories, and there's still obviously a market for them. Communication is the most, right now, this is where we are, right? Everything that's happening now, it's all geared towards communication. How do we facilitate that contact between one human being and another? How do we make it mobile, right? How do we make it that I can do it from wherever I'm standing? Or, like, I can be anywhere in the world and text my friend, right? So if you're thinking about starting a new business, I would say focus on communication, right? Like transportation.
Not that you're biased.
Right. Not that I'm biased, right? But I've worked in both. Like, shelter used to be kind of my thing. I was designing high rises in Dubai and China and whatnot. But really, I think where we are now is we're trying to master this notion of how do we communicate with one another in the simplest, most effective way. We've already kind of, most of us have roofs over our head. A lot of us don't. We're still working on that, but I mean, communication is key. I think if you can focus on that, and, you know, mobile platforms, whatnot, you're on the right track. But focus on the essence. What is it that people want? What do you want when you wake up in the morning? What do you do? What do you want? You want to, you know, if you can figure out a business model that has to do with fulfilling those basic needs, I mean, you can't go wrong.
Did you tell us all the 5? I can't remember.
No, I said 3.
Okay.
Transportation, communication, food and shelter. I always forget
the other.
I wrote an ebook about this stuff.
We'll get back to it when you remember.
Yeah,
so in the meantime, you inspired a thought, and it's that I haven't heard the pitch that you guys have. You guys must have a pitch, don't you?
For Puerto Rico?
For your companies.
Sure.
Can you share it with us, the elevator pitch?
So you guys didn't share yours. I shared mine at the beginning. Essentially, you know, so essentially we make it very easy for marketers inside media companies to create applications that work on all smartphones to share their content and save over 90% of the cost of software development.
My pitch will be more for app developers or content providers that want they're from the US or Europe that want to penetrate Latin America. Basically, we have a solution that will help app discovery and app monetization throughout all Latin America. Our product is we build an SDK that an app developer includes in their application, and through discovery platform, we're going to help promote that application, and once the application is installed, inside we're going to have a couple of different modules that are going to help app developers monetize the application, either within incentivizing users to see advertising or buying virtual goods through mobile payments. That's basically our product right now.
My pitch is smart content for smart people. I was talking to a guy from the New York Times, and he's like, "What's your, what makes you different, right? Because media companies are actually a dime a dozen. I mean, they're all over. And basically, this came from the soul. I don't know where it came from, but I told him, while others assume you're stupid, we know you're smart, and we cater our content to that notion, right? There are media companies in Puerto Rico. They write content for like a 6th grade level education in English, and they feel like they need to dumb it down for the masses, and we're totally the opposite of that. Like, we write smart content. If you like it, you want to read it, great. If you don't get it, well, I don't know, keep reading it, right? Keep learning, right? Keep learning,
after the third time you read it,
yeah,
you don't
and that's not like it's not like this crazy. We're not writing super complicated content, but we're giving people the information that they need to do whatever it is that they need to do, right?
So I'm curious about the actual funding that your companies have, and sort of questions around, what were the things that you didn't know that you had to learn? What does it take to do a business plan? Is that so important? What were, do you need to know about accounting and finance? How do you become a manager? All of those things.
Burn your resume, forget about the business plan, marketing plans, all that stuff, forget about that. Yeah, okay, you can do it. It's a great exercise. It's very nice to know exactly how you're going to market your business. It's nice to know where you're going, what your plan is, what your elevator pitch is. But all that stuff, honestly, it's kind of irrelevant. If you are focused on what you're doing, it really doesn't matter. You'll find the way to get the money. You'll find investors. If what you're doing is for a social good, if you're fulfilling one of these basic needs, all this stuff kind of comes together. I haven't used my resume ever. I have a resume, and I just revamped it now after 15, 20 years. Literally, I didn't touch something. Forget about that stuff.
Yeah, so that idea, no business plan survives first contact with customers, right? That's what Professor Steve Black says out of Stanford on the lean startup stuff. So that's totally true, right? You have to focus on building stuff people want, right? People have to want it, and they have to be willing to pay for it. And if you focus on that on the front end, if you're doing a startup, right? If it's a startup, if it's Carlos was mentioning, if just a business, let's say a restaurant, then it's sort of the economics are sort of clear, and what's your supply chain, your product, all this stuff is clear. And then it's really about, what's the market you're serving, if it's a restaurant specifically, and what are the demographics, all the details. So in terms of really knowing, even though it's a great exercise to kind of write out what are your assumptions on your business, really it's very, very, very important that you invest time in understanding the things that you don't know, because you don't know what you don't know, right? There's a lot of stuff that you didn't know, I didn't know when I was starting out, and you don't sort of need all these, all these skill sets, but you need to at least be able to understand what your CFO does, right? And what your CPO does, and what your marketing people do, and sales people do. So, unfortunately, for founders, they should have a broad set of understanding, right? Now, the skill sets for everything, that's very, very difficult to have, but to at least understand as much as you can, right? And Marcus will talk about that, because that's really what the Founders Institute really focuses on. It's really sort of founders school, right? Understanding from the perspective of, CEOs, people that have actually built companies, on what's the specific things you need to know. So if you can get exposed to at least, prior on really understanding like your P&L, understanding the accounting basics, and really money coming in, money coming out, and all the tax compliance stuff and legal stuff, at least understanding so that you can have a meaningful conversation with your accountant, understanding fundraising and what cap tables are and all this stuff, so that you can have a meaningful conversation with potential investors. Because how do you negotiate equity terms, right? And what's the term sheet, and what are the pro rata rights? What's all this stuff? You don't have to be an expert, but you have to understand it, and you have to invest as much time as you can up front to get it access, and even then you'll still make a bunch of mistakes, right? But you don't want those small mistakes to kill you. You want your sort of mistakes on sort of your market risk are the things that are supposed to kill you, right? Not that you didn't file your taxes and now you're like in trouble. So
I've had two experiences. My first businesses, the SMEs, had to do business plans, to think, but that has changed. Now it's not just about a big business plan. It's just about having a product that is based on the consumer, that the consumer wants, and to get it out there and test it. The famous MVP. Just go there, do it, test it, and then the other things will follow. I believe on business plans. I believe in strategy. You need to build it because that's your map, and it helps you focus. But that has changed a lot, and now with the innovation-driven enterprises, all the angel investors, everything, they like the idea and a product that has paying customers, but also the team, So you need a really good team, and if you have that, the business plan is second, In technology, innovation-driven enterprise, it's iteration all the time, so you change too much. So a business plan is sometimes a waste of time, So definitely it has changed a lot.
To your question, also on financing options. So for example, my experience has been I've sort of bootstrapped my companies, and bootstrapped with my own money and bootstrapped with customer money. Because we've developed those companies in Puerto Rico, right, where there is no investors, or essentially, so the investors community is at the time wasn't sort of sophisticated in that sense, and I didn't have access to those relationships, essentially, right? So I really invested time in going to other markets and building those relationships, which now Puerto Rico has great access to, right? We have access to maybe not investors as many as we'd like in Puerto Rico, but investors anywhere else, right? So you go to wherever the money is, and the money will find, products that people want. So if you have this great product, great traction, paying customers, you can find investors anywhere, little angel, TL, get your first investor, someone that you know, a friend or trusted source, or like us or whatever, and we can sort of help you out in that sense. So I just start my companies, and it's very, very difficult. So if you figure out friends and family around and try to sort of focus, so you can focus on the customer discovery part, really focus on it for 6 to a year or something would be great. Because it's very, very nerve-wracking, and it's very stressful to never knowing if you're going to start making payrolls the next month or all this stuff. It's a lot harder than some.
So actually, I want to piggyback on that really quickly. The fact that you're talking, it's hard, you don't know what you're going to get paid month to month, versus students that are graduating from very well-known world-class institutions that know that they can get a job in consulting, they can get an investment banking job, they can and forego that risk.
Yes.
So why should they not take the consulting job?
Yeah. So this is a great question, right? Because this is something I talk about kind of all the time. It's great in Puerto Rico. People talk a lot about engineers, and we're all engineers, right? So I'm an engineer, and generally people don't understand the amount of pressure you guys are in every single day. Because every single day you have a cushy $175,000 job right here, right? Any of us can get to that, not a problem. And then you have your passions and your dreams, and really on this side, right? On what you want to do. You can have the $175K and build something with someone else, not just for someone else, right? So if you can go join a startup with someone that's building something that you like, and just grow that. So you have that pressure, and that's why it's really a very personal choice, right? There's no right answer on saying, you should go this, you should go this way. Definitely figure out what's best for you at any given moment, right? There's certain market windows, right? And if you're passionate about it, just take the jump, because the opportunity cost makes sense, especially in your early 20s, right? I mean, first, especially in the ecosystem where you're in Boston specifically, it makes sense, right, to take that risk and follow your sort of passions and build a technology company or a business around what you love. Or you can take the money and run, right? Or take the money and really sort of build also that experience in somewhere where is aligned with your passions, right? It sort of makes sense that if you are passionate about finance, then you take a, 175, 200, whatever it is, job in investment banking to learn the business, right? And really understand where the challenges are, where the opportunities are, because you'd have, deeper knowledge inside the industry, right? As students, you might not have that sort of vantage point, but you obviously have spectacular professors, advisors, mentors that can give you that and can tell you. So, make sure that it's sort of you follow what you want. And also to explain to people that, the pressure, and it's very, so for me, totally makes sense to do work on things I want, right? That's sort of very clear. Once you have a taste of that, there's really no going back, right? You'll do absolutely anything and everything so that you don't have to, do a 9 to 5 working on something you hate, right? Which is something you hear about on a lot of most employed people, right? Obviously, everyone in this room has privilege to sort of select the kind of job they might want, or where they might not have those options. But generally, people don't have those options. So, and not having those options for engineers in Puerto Rico, then you have the pressure to obviously leave. And this is not a Puerto Rico problem, right? I was in Startup Arizona. There's a Startup America initiative, and there were over 30 states there where the regional sort of talking about the challenges that they face. And they were talking the same things we're talking with you guys now, right? It's very easy to take a job in San Francisco and New York and leave Connecticut, right? Or leave New Jersey, or leave Montana, right? It's just, it's because they have that pressure. It's so easy to get a job at that, with those skill sets, not with other skill sets, right? It might be very difficult, but if you can code, and you have an engineering background, sold, right? And you have, Google and Facebook competing for you all the time. So, yeah. So that balance is very difficult. Do what you love.
I'm gonna make it really easy for all of you. It's like when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing that you think about? Do that for the rest of your life, and trust me, you will find a way to monetize it. The money comes later; it comes secondary. Just do what you love every day. You will make money, and you will be happy. I mean, I was in my office the other day. I share an office with a mortgage bank, and the receptionist, and then when I walked in, as soon as I walked in the office, she's like, "Oh my God, I can't wait for 6 o'clock." I never feel like that. Like, I'm like, "Oh my God, it's already 6 o'clock." Like, every day, I just do not have enough time. And meanwhile, she's like dying for it to be 6 o'clock so she can get the hell out of there. I never feel like that. Why? Because I do what I love every single day. Do it like and it's very instinctual. It's not like do it like think about what it is that you love to do. No. What do you think about when you wake up in the morning? Do that. Like, if you think about shopping, get into retail. If you think about like fruit shakes, start a fruit shake stand. Start a fruit shake fucking in a restaurant. Sorry. Like, I mean, just
we'll leave it for the streaming audience. Don't worry.
I apologize for that. Just do that, and you will make money. Or you will have a business right there.
I think also getting a job, but having in mind that it is just a step, and that money put it away for your startup is great too. Why? Because you get exposure. You know, working for McKinsey or working for any company that is in your area of interest. And learning from the inside how they did it and everything, that's a lot of value too. But don't get the 100K salary and then started buying an expensive car, an apartment, and getting to them. No. Take that. Still live with your parents. Put their money away. But that's a great way to learn from the inside from a company that you admire that is in your area of expertise. That's super valuable, okay? So you can do it either way,
Actually, yeah, related to that, it's like when I started my blog and I was writing, I used to write like 4 or 5 articles a week, almost every day. I was working as an architect for 12-hour days. I'd get in at 8, I'd leave at 8 o'clock at night, 9 at night, and I would blog from 9 at night to 2 in the morning. Like, when you figure it out, what it is that you want to do, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be hard, and you're going to have to put in the hours. no matter what you do. But if you love it, I mean, yeah, I would literally not leave my house Saturday and Sunday, blogging, so doing social media. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, Twitter, oh my God, Facebook, oh my God, LinkedIn, and like updating my, and all this stuff. It's hard. You have to put in the hours, but if you do need to get that job, which I agree with exactly what he said, when you get home, plenty of time to do damage.
Yeah, so that's very important to keep that in the back of your mind as you sort of work on some other sort of full-time job somewhere. Is that you have access to entrepreneurship, right? And that's really why I tell people sort of masters or graduate or whatever is that you know it, right? And you have access to sort of network and the resources, and there's all these resources in Puerto Rico and outside to sort of help you through that process. That when you're ready, you can start just like Gianpaolo, you just mentioned, is that you do your 9 to 5 or whatever it is, and then you sort of put in the time, your weekends, your days, whatever, to sort of start your entrepreneurship track, for sure.
And in the meantime, you can moderate panels,
Definitely.
Entrepreneurship.
Whatever it takes. Like, honestly, whatever it takes. Like, I'm in media, but, like, I do everything from, like, manning. I go to press conferences and I take photographs. I write, obviously, articles myself. I have an opinion column that I write about politics. I interviewed the governor last week. I mean, you have to be willing to wear all kinds of different hats. Like, whether it's tech, and definitely learn how to code, for sure.
All right, so this is a great segue into, and we're wrapping up for Q&A and opening it up to your questions. But I've been wondering in the back of my mind, what is the one question that you don't get asked enough? Or that you do not like to be asked? Is there something that you just wish people would ask you more about?
I just think like not enough people are doing what they love. I mean, and they're never asking about what their passions are, or how do they get in touch, or how do they figure that out. Like seriously, like go home, get a piece of paper, and write down like your elevator pitch for your life. And until you figure it, when you hit something, you're gonna like get emotional. Like when you nailed it, it's gonna like actually impact you physically. So like, and I did it once actually, and it took me like 80 tries. And when I got there, like you'll feel like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then you just go from there.
I think on that line, I believe that one of the most important things that people I see a new generation of people looking at this is it's about reason and about purpose. And it's that passion. Why you're doing it? What is your reason and what is your purpose? And a lot of people that go into business and they're in it for the money, but money and material things give you pleasure, and pleasure is momentary. Then you have passion. The passion it's more prolonged than pleasure, but it's momentary. But we have purpose. It's not momentary. It's for the long run. So I believe in whatever you do, you should have a reason and a purpose, and then the money is gonna come. It just get there. I had a personal experience with one of my businesses, the entertainment business. When we started, we were very young, we were very hungry. We just wanted to do the best party producing company in Puerto Rico. We wanted to be, the best place, the best, and our mission was about that, about building something really cool and putting more business into nightclub business, to make it more a better reputation of that industry. And we were rocking. But then we started making money. And when I started making some more money, and my partner were like, ooh, money, this is cool, we bought some cars, whatever. And then we started doing stupid mistakes, like things that we used to do to create value to the customers, like free parties or big events for our employees that were really cool in very cool places. They were like, we need to, get more, more profit margin. Let's cut here and here, there. But that was very stupid mistake. Super stupid mistake. I regret it. Because you start cutting the value that you created to users. So when you have a purpose and you're focused and you have a reason, money is going to come. It's gonna flow like crazy, So that's something that I'm telling a lot of people right now. Just focus on your purpose, long term, and passion, and the pleasure is going to come, but don't focus on pleasure.
So to your question, the question is a spectacular question, by the way. And it's in the context that we can be, we, meaning you, and us, myself, we can be literally anywhere in the world working or doing whatever you love. Why are you in Puerto Rico? Why be there when you can be anywhere? And for me, it's really, and I think we all share this, all the panelists, is that it's really the opportunity to build something together that's ours. It doesn't matter what community you're in. If you're in Boston, just the idea of building it, it's yours, and you're building with others, and see that it's sort of all of us sort of together building something that wasn't there before, right? That sort of ecosystem, that opportunity for others, those bridges outside of Puerto Rico, etc. It's really, we're there. We're kind of sort of in that process, and we're sort of together, and having that opportunity is really what sort of keeps us sort of after those opportunities in Puerto Rico.
That's great. I think this is a wonderful way to sort of open up for questions. And if you have a question, raise your hand. I'll repeat it, and then so that the streaming audience can. There we go. Perfect. We're ready. We're prepared. You're gonna have to sprint. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for doing the panel. It's really great to learn about your stories and experiences as an entrepreneur. So congratulations to you guys. Very cool. My name is Fernando Albertorio. Here in Boston, working on a startup as well. And one thing about Boston is the ecosystem. You get this word a lot. As an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to build a network. My network is a living network, and is one of the most important assets that I have as an entrepreneur. I can rely on them for advice, mentoring, the connections to other people who are doing startups as well in the area. And sometimes, we always say that it's kind of a close-knit community here in Boston. Everyone knows each other. In your experience in Puerto Rico, how do you find the ecosystem in terms of that network, where you can draw from the experience of other entrepreneurs? Has that been easy for you, or is it just kind of a sparse or very scattered across the island?
Sure, so I think I'll jump into that. You guys can sort of add to that. So thankfully, we've, and with the support of a lot of the panelists, and it's something Marcos and myself have sort of worked a lot on, is that you feel that same sort of camaraderie and sort of network in terms of the entrepreneurship ecosystem now that sort of didn't exist, I would say, even 2.5, 3 years ago, right? That connectedness amongst the different companies, different mentors, communities outside, etc. So, and the way we sort of went about building that is really connecting a lot of the initiatives. So, for example, the sort of startup weekend organizations from Global connects the mentors in different East Coast, Puerto Rico. Then there's sort of Founders Institute, which essentially groups 1,500 mentors, which again, there's sort of that exchange. And through all these different sort of events and sort of the community building, startups of Puerto Rico specifically, right, as an umbrella thing, sort of groups all the different companies. And now we have that, right? We recently had people come down from, I don't remember sort of the company. I don't know if you remember the guy that came from Texas, Boston, like Puerto Rican, just like yourself, sort of just came to hang out, sell what was going on and say, hey, I want to be part of that, and how can I help? And there are sort of Puerto Ricans all around, and now there's sort of technologies around the world. So what didn't sort of exist just a few years ago, now sort of it's sort of, you can feel it, right? You can go to a community event, you can see real companies that are actually, hundreds of countries, right? And with the same kind of sort of globalized, say, attitude, right? Which you feel in Boston of, how can I help you? How can I add value to you first, instead of what's in it for me, which is it's a thing that it's not just sort of Puerto Rico problem, it's sort of worldwide. So now we have that, right? That kind of experience of, Carlos, I need this, and do you know someone? And Carlos like, I know this guy that knows that guy, and things like that. But then it's bigger and it's open as well, right? It's open to anyone, which is before it was generally very close, kind of like an old boys kind of club, and they kind of know each other, but then it's like, you know, it was closed. Now it's sort of really open. You can go to any community event, connect with the community. Connect online with the community. That's actually, I don't have my laptop with me, but like Paranda, right? Paranda.org. It's a platform you can connect with Puerto Ricans around the world under the idea that Puerto Rico is not 3.7 million people, it's 8.6, right? It's really more of a culture than just a place, mindset. So if you like, what is it, right? If you like Mofongo and you know, and things like that, then you're Puerto Rican. And there's platforms to connect. So we feel that now. There's a lot more access now. At least the technology ecosystem, global technology ecosystem is way more connected, right? So I was in Rio with a startup weekend, with startup organizers, and you meet a lot of people here. That's right. When I came to Boston, I'm staying with sort of Ethan Bagley, the startup weekend organizer, startup company, and we sort of met in Rio and had that shared experience. Went to Arizona and met all the other sort of Central America sort of people, and you see that globally it's sort of the same. People in Puerto Rico is now a part of that, right? That didn't exist, right? So you can say like Startups Puerto Rico, and you can see like articles about what's going on in that connectedness. But we need more help, right? So now it's great to share something with you. Now we have tons of resources we have for you, but then obviously I'm sure there's access that you can sort of help out other companies in Puerto Rico as well, right? So all these opportunities happening right now, and we're sort of all part of really sort of that sort of new wave that you can feel it. You just land Puerto Rico and have somewhere to stay. Any entrepreneur anywhere in the world now can just come, and they say that they have stayed, right? They're coming down, they're coming over the summer, and they just come and stay. And some of them have built sort of initiatives with collaborations in Puerto Rico, things that we sort of, no one would even dream that it would be possible for, San Francisco, Seattle, Puerto Rico collaborations to create startups. And we've seen that happen.
I agree with what you're saying. Like 2 years ago in Puerto Rico, there was nothing. There was isolated activity happening, individuals doing interesting things. It was completely disorganized. It still is disorganized because this ecosystem is very new, very fresh, and it's just now starting to, through the efforts of Ramphis and Marcus and all of us, get connected. Right? All of a sudden we all realize, wait a minute, we're all kind of here. You're doing that, I'm doing this, and we're all starting to communicate with each other. Whereas we didn't do that just a few years ago. We're all starting to create conferences. I think you were involved with TEDx San Juan. We're organizing the Yasta conference, Boundless. They're doing something in May or June.
I mean, there's something going on all the time.
Now there's something, like all of a sudden, there's something almost every week, right? We're all kind of, and we're getting bigger and bolder and more organized. And so, but you're talking like, we are organizing. I consider it part of my mission to like get this group of people together and organized and to create a hub. I think Puerto Rico has so much potential to be a hub, like Silicon Valley, like San Francisco, for Latin America, right? And for these Hispanics in the U.S., like we could be paving that road if we wanted to. And we're trying to do that, and I encourage you to be a part of it. I mean, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
And I want to say publicly here, Marcos and Ramphis have been two guys that are working very hard to create this ecosystem. They're doing too many initiatives. I don't know how they do it, but they're traveling a lot. They're doing, a lot of events, related and not related. And this ecosystem is being built right now. Like 2 years ago, there's a lot of people. For example, Gaby is pushing, this program again about bringing wealthy individuals to Puerto Rico, promoting the Law 73, and Act 22 for entrepreneurs to build companies and to bring wealthy individuals to move to Puerto Rico, to create one part of the ecosystem. You have Francisco Verde, the Grupo Guayacán, which is a non-profit, helping, educating, with the Guayacán Venture Accelerator, which is great. They're bringing great talent to Puerto Rico, Tom Kosnick from Stanford, Gianpaolo from London Business School. The other day, Christina Bellerin from a founding team of YouTube was in Puerto Rico. They love the island, Again, at the start of the weekend, the Founders Institute, my chapter at Founders Institute in Puerto Rico, I myself was with Francisco in Silicon Valley in one of the activities, and we're talking there, everybody's talking about Puerto Rico. We're at the eye of everybody right now. The ecosystem is being built. A lot of Puerto Ricans that are very involved. I came here in January for the ADP and MIT. Amazing experience. I called these guys of the association here at Puerto Rico and said, guys, I want to meet you. We're speaking, we're talking, and this is the ecosystem is going to be created. We have to create it, and we're very committed to that, and that's why we're here, and it's part of what we need. But what do we do? It's being built. It's being built, and it's starting to flourish.
Yeah, and you are all part of it now, right? Because, for example, last night we were talking. Someone mentioned, how can we get more people to code, right? And there's like math Olympics. Who's talking about this? There's just math Olympics all over Puerto Rico. How can we use code? So from that idea, I can tell you right now, it's something that in my mind is sort of already kind of done, right? That's a decision. So we'll sort of follow up and figure out how to open those doors and do that. But that's an MIT sort of idea, right? From a Puerto Rican student at MIT, and there's this concern. So what do you think should be done, and really understanding that you have sort of community support from the Boston community now, right, and the Puerto Rico community, how we can figure stuff out together is something that it's now sort of moving forward. So this is a spectacular project.
Let me underscore and highlight the fact that it's been built. It's the spirit of we are the ones that need to build it too. And as you briefly mentioned, parranda.org, it started because of students like you organizing a conference at Yale. How many of you were at the Yale conference? I know I see a couple of familiar faces. That was last year. Today there's a website, and it can be whatever you want it to be, but you need to come and build it. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, that I think we're talking about here. And that there are platforms there. The May Summit that you were mentioning, it's a Parranda May Summit on May 30th, and it's going to be in Puerto Rico, and it might be one of the first open conferences, which you see in Silicon Valley. So there we go. This is the kind of opportunities for that.
Like what was happening in the U.S., 5, 10, 15 years ago, is happening in Puerto Rico right now. This is an amazing opportunity. It's a blank canvas. Like if you're an artist, you'd be like, I'm thrilled every day. I'm freaking excited. Like new things are because these new things are happening every day, right? And I keep, we're all running into each other. I'm going somewhere random, and you'll be there, right? Because we're all running to the same place. We're getting connected. We're working together. We're organizing ourselves. It's really exciting. So I think you guys are very lucky. This was not happening when I graduated college. That's for sure.
So for those who have questions in the audience, raise your hand, and we'll get the mic. Wonderful.
Hi, my name is Luis Somoza. Thank you again for being here. And I'm really glad you brought up that point about not just Puerto Ricans realizing the changing market. I actually took a class with Tom Kosnick last year, and he starts the class talking about what are his top markets for entrepreneurship, and he mentioned San Juan as his top 20. So that was really impressive. My question is more around the changing policy, the policy in Puerto Rico, particularly economic. You were talking about how it's a great market for startups and small companies, and they have all these incentives. And it's almost, I see a conflicting view of those startups and those incentives versus established companies, which we've seen in the economic downturn going down and face all these costs, infrastructure, overhead, and I'm wondering, from your perspective, is that something that you're preparing for early on when you're launching your company? Is there any policy work that you're trying to do from your end to make that more sustainable in the long term?
So if I understood correctly, sort of what's your sort of view on policy, and therefore what are sort of the kind of the policy, what's actually going on?
Right. So you can use like well-established companies, medium, large companies that are leaving the island for economic reasons or just plain going under. And you also see the government sort of giving distinct treatments to new companies versus established companies. The government, for example, when the whole airline industry, lower lending fees for the new incoming companies, lower rents versus those that were established, American Airlines leaving. So I'm just wondering how that works and what role you play in that. And I think this is applicable for all the panelists today, not just yours.
So, I mean, and I'll let you chime in, but essentially, one is, the great opportunity is, what do you think the policy should be, right? And we'll have sort of that conversation offline, because that's really where we're at. And that's on really the opportunity. In terms of where it's going to be, well, that's really where all of us together kind of sort of figure out what sort of the way forward. The other part we're reporting is that that is something that is not just happening sort of in Puerto Rico in terms of the economic and how that sort of works. And it's part of it is because there's generally, unfortunately, and not just in Puerto Rico, there was sort of a lack of entrepreneurship in that space, right? So now there are other people in the sense of plants that are closing, sort of figuring out ways to sort of jump in and sort of, through entrepreneurship to sort of acquire those companies and really reinsert it through sort of global markets. And that's really, entrepreneurs are driving that, right? And Manuel will have a chance to really touch on that. So remember, all these things that are sort of moving forward to sort of policy direction, it's part of the challenge is that there weren't entrepreneurs driving policy, right? That's really what's a big challenge in not just Puerto Rico government, governments around the world. What was happening sort of Global Entrepreneurship Congress in Rio was 135 sort of governments sort of discussing, and everyone faces the same kind of challenges. It's really through entrepreneurship that you sort of figure out how do you stem people leaving and things like that. So on the entrepreneurship, so the difference in how they're being treated, that's something that moving forward we get a chance to address. And some laws, and for example, opening up laws like Law 73 and really figuring out how to apply those to sort of startups, right? And really focusing on sort of exports and things like that, opens a lot of incentives that generally was just only thought of for big companies, right? All the policy was just thought of, how do we bring these massive companies where it's not just sort of massive companies, it's not just native companies, it's also a whole host of different areas of economic development that you have access to, right? So, nearshoring software development companies from, instead of Argentina, Puerto Rico, or adding to that, right? Aerospace industries, regulated industries. There's just a whole host of opportunities where the policy is sort of moving forward will match what all of us as entrepreneurs understand it should be, and you'll play a role in that, and all of you, because you have a chance to ask. There's some specific things you might want to jump in and add to that as well.
I just wanted to add, because I'm very much part of the economic development process in the island. Your observations are very accurate, and we are what we call in the middle of a tax change. Since 1913, there were always federal tax incentives associated with having operations in the island. Those incentives ceased to exist in 1994. So for the last 20 years, it's the first time in modern history that Puerto Rico has operated without federal tax incentives. So that has created a vacuum for new investment in Puerto Rico, which creates the need for the tax change. And I think the government realized that we needed to move in a different direction. So that is, your assertion is correct. There is a change. So it's not antagonist. It's that we are in the midst of a tax change right now.
I believe it's the old economy, the new economy, the disruption that is being built, and all these new entrepreneurship projects about efficiency and everything. So you're gonna see, how companies rise to the top and how others fail because they're more old economy, old models, and everything. So I believe that's part of the evolution process,
And so to add to that as well, it's also thinking about the challenges, all these people that have had the chance to sort of build their professional careers in Puerto Rico, specifically talking about Puerto Rico, and you have all this sort of manufacturing capacity and pharmaceuticals and all this stuff. They are run by generally Puerto Ricans, right? The general manager is Puerto Rican, or from general manager down, plant manager, all these guys Puerto Ricans, and they as Marcos says, they know how to operate the machine, right? And like push buttons, and they're world class at doing that, right? Like you take Puerto Ricans, they have built sort of the plants so that they can essentially remove their own jobs, plants in the United States, plants in Ireland, plants all over the world. They take the Puerto Rican consultants to actually help build the plants that we have. So that's where the expertise has been built over 30, 40, 50 years. And now we're asking them, and they should think, oh, they should have said, well, we run this thing, right? We literally run this thing. Why don't we buy it? Why don't we have employee-owned companies? And just that switch, which might feel obvious to us in terms of entrepreneurship, it's not something that would cross anyone's mind, especially in then having those conversations, consensus building. So that's the opportunity all of us have. Again, every time you feel like, oh, things are going down, figure out what role can you play in taking advantage and connecting for those opportunities, right? So manufacturing capacity that we have, that expertise, how do you connect that with the bio industry sort of in Boston, right? It's massive, right? My brother sort of was in sort of Boston for 10 years and worked in the regulatory affairs side. That's something that's a minimal presence sort of in Puerto Rico, and how that operates and works. And you guys will have access to really connecting those dots and really rethinking how you take advantage of all the assets as policy shifts to support your initiatives to really make that happen, and just really make it happen. So that's why there's a lack of entrepreneurship in that sense, right? And there's a lot of fear, a lot of difficulty with access to capital, not the right context, not the right network. So we've never thought of how do we sort of figure this out on our own. And now everyone's kind of realizing, oh, we can actually do this, right? And we're gonna, right? And some of it has been done already. But moving forward, you'll see it accelerate as we continue to connect with each other.
So I wanted to mention that for all of you here and all of you streaming, the hundreds of thousands of Puerto Ricans that are streaming right now, at PRSC 13, that's a Twitter handle that you need to use if you want the questions to come through. I'm getting tweets right now, so people are watching, in fact. This is really exciting. From Miami, we have Natasha Otero saying hello. She's from Parana.org, so she's watching. And if you have any questions and you feel more comfortable sending them by tweets, you can also do that. We can make that happen.
I actually wasn't aware of that, but I'll start tweeting once we're done.
Sounds good. There we go.
So we actually have a question that came in through the tweets. One of the viewers was wondering if you could give us an example or several examples of a niche that you have found in Puerto Rico that is much stronger in Puerto Rico than it is in the mainland U.S.
That's a tough question.
I would say stronger than the U.S. It's a big term, right? Can you be more specific? Let's say more like niche, because when you say United States is a big place, right? And generally, when people refer to the United States, they actually are referring primarily to the coast, New York, San Francisco, right, and Boston, and that's not properly the United States. That's Boston, New York, and San Francisco. So the ecosystems that you see there might not be present in like Iowa or Idaho or anywhere else. So in terms of niches, Puerto Rico, it's very difficult to answer. So I would just bring up one where we see successful competition globally from Puerto Rico. Would that fit your criteria? So I can talk about sort of project management company. Who's here heard of Basecamp? Basecamp? Project management software, Asana. Right, so tech people, none. So one of the biggest project management software in the world is from 37 Signals. It's called Basecamp, right? They have millions of customers around the world. And there's this smaller company in Puerto Rico that is called Blimp. And they now have over 4,000 plus companies that are using their project management software in over 100 countries. And they take customers away from Basecamp, Asana, and Trello, right? Which are the worldwide leaders on this. And these guys are on track to essentially be sort of one of the largest, sort of fastest growing companies sort of locally in the project management space. So successful competition from Puerto Rico is possible, and there are others that sort of mentioned, but that specifically there's sort of real traction on that. So that's just one good example.
I don't know about niches that are stronger there than here. We're all kind of like the same, and what I can tell you is that in Puerto Rico there are a ton of underserved markets. Like there are just people that are there are basic things that aren't happening there that are happening here already. Services, right? basic services that here they're kind of like taken for granted. They're kind of like already that they don't even exist. So there's so many opportunities. One of them is the one that I'm working on about, something as simple as people being able to make appointments online. It's happening here. It's an established industry. There are several people serving that market. In Puerto Rico, it's not happening at this point. So I mean, the opportunities like that are everywhere on the island, and in Latin America in general, not just Puerto Rico. I mean, it's unbelievable the things that people can't do in Latin America that you could help them do and make a lot of money doing it.
I don't know. I think niche. I was talking to an entrepreneur. I want to be, he wanted mentoring. I was talking to him. He's like, "What should I do? What this and that?" And he told me he wanted to do his own business. And I said, like, find out insights on the Puerto Rican culture and just do something, And then I told him this idea. It's like, have you thought about building Puerto Rican tostoneras and putting tostoneras online and selling tostoneras all over the world? Like, tostones is Puerto Rican thing, like build really cool tostoneras, do an online store, 4 million Puerto Ricans in the island, in Saranda, 4 million in the US, they would love to buy a tostonera, so that's like an example of just an idea that you can make it huge with online, so there are many industries that it's just, you have to just think about this common insights in the culture and build stuff. That is very easy. How difficult is to build a tostonera? It's like 2 pieces of wood. It's like, so this is a clever idea, whatever. But like that you can do many things. On my area, mobile is huge, and I don't see mobile companies in Puerto Rico. I think we're the only company right now that is doing something significant in Puerto Rico in mobile. And in mobile, there are many industries inside mobile. We started in mobile entertainment, and that's what we're doing. But there's more mobile marketing, there's mobile health, there's more learning, mobile government solutions, even mobile agriculture. Huge potential in mobile, not just in Puerto Rico, but in the world. Latin America, we're talking about right now 740 million phones. In 2015, it's gonna go up to 900 million phones. The smartphone penetration in Latin America, smartphone is barely 22-23%. That tells you something. A smartphone, it's the first computer for many people. So there's tons of opportunities. And in mobile health alone, mobile IT is huge. Think about the possibilities. Mobile marketing, everything, advertising, and mobile advertising is in its infancy. So there are many opportunities. It's a matter of you, focusing and trying to get into that. We don't have competition right now in Puerto Rico.
So I'll add to that's kind of plug it in there. I can actually help you with that, right? So as we have our global perspective on what goes on in terms of mobile and that space, that's really some of the things that we ended up sort of doing a lot, is really advising mobile first companies, essentially companies that figure out and start with mobile as their sort of primary thing, and really understanding how mobile changes the relationship with the customer is something that we've obviously invested a lot of time in understanding at scale, right? And understanding, how it works in Asia, what's the different behavior in Latin America, how's that different from African farmers in Kenya, and payments, and in European. So really, that is something that is our core competency at Lingua.
Hi, my name is Xavier, and I'm a third-year student at Bell University studying economics and finance. And in the past, I've had several ideas, and every time I go to my mentor or to someone I want to pitch the idea to, they always say that good companies and successful companies are 10% the idea and 90% the execution. So if you guys could please give me 1 or 2 things to help us students that are trying to start companies concretize our ideas and be successful.
Get to work. I mean, get, you know, whatever your idea is, like come up with a name, buy the domain name, start a website, whether it's on Blogger or WordPress, whatever it is, get the website going and start, you know, thinking about apps, learning to code, whatever it is. When you're not in class, you should be working towards that goal. I mean, you know, there are things, steps that need to happen, but start doing them little by little. But you know, yeah, get the domain and get going. I mean, launch already. The keys to launch, the keys to you're hearing these buzzwords now like deploy and launch. You know, ship. You know, this guy. Seth Rogen. You know, no, and Seth Godin. Ship, you know, you just put your product out there and see what happens.
Yeah. Reid Hoffman said, you know, if you're not ashamed of your first product, when you launch, you're too late. Yeah. So it's like just do it, and that's part of the lean startup model, you know. Be sure, I think the most important thing is that you're solving a customer's pain. Once you solve a customer pain and he's willing to pay for that service, you have a good product, that's the idea, and then have a good team and execute. Just go there and deploy it.
So I totally got you covered, right? So who's here heard of Startup Weekend? All right, one, two, that's about it. All right, so there's a big opportunity there. So essentially, you guys should organize a Startup Weekend, really. That's really the way to do it. So Startup Weekend essentially is, and they host it all over the world, and you can anyone can be an organizer, facilitator comes by. It gets you the chance to really build a team, go through the process of actually building a startup over the course of 54 hours, right? It's like a hackathon, but with a business part inside, right? And the idea is you can have the engineering school and the business school or whatever, and they essentially build the prototype and actually learn the skills you need to understand if you're on the right track, right? So customer development, customer interviews, how to pitch, how to build teams, how to recruit, how to create a PowerPoint for investors, what's your revenue model, all this stuff goes on over the course of a weekend. And essentially we can teach you all this stuff and you actually do it, right? So it's, I would say not 10% idea, 90%, it's 100%. Like ideas are a diamond dust, they're totally completely worthless. You can't go to like a market and say I'm going to buy this, like just the idea itself on its own. No one's going to sort of pay you just for the idea on its own. Anyways, so Startup Weekend, anyone can organize. You can just do it, and you should go. Like there are Startup Weekends all the time in Boston. You go to startupweekend.org, just figure out what's the next Startup Weekend, and just drive and go. Right? If you have your idea, you'll have to go up and pitch. They'll teach you how to pitch, 60-second pitch. You go and recruit your team. And even if you don't recruit a team, you go join someone else's team, and you learn how to work on those teams together to actually validate if your idea has any legs, right? So concrete examples, ideas that have come out of Startup Weekend is Zarly, right? Zarly is sort of marketplace, connects people that want to sell stuff and people want to buy stuff, right? Like let's say like not like an eBay, but just sort of like a yard sale kind of thing, would connect people. Raise money, did the whole thing. I did Startup Week. I facilitated Startup Week in Norway, and there was, I think it was called Soundrop. And after Startup Weekend, they essentially built the idea on a napkin. They went to the event, learned how to do it, and like a few months afterwards, they successfully raised $3 million, right? And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that have started through Startup Weekend, right? So Startup Weekend is really just a weekend commitment, right? It starts on a Friday, ends on a Sunday, and you can actually work and figure out, if your idea has any leg, right? You learn if anyone cares about what you're trying to build, and you learn the skills on how to use sort of social media to actually sort of get traction, feedback, go out and talk with customers. So that's actually the best way right now would be to kind of organize, right? And then you get a chance to also meet potential mentors and advisors, because as an organizer, you have facilitators come out and help you out. You recruit, the Boston mentors, right? You have Fernando here, and he can connect you with these sort of texters to get more mentors. Obviously you're in this university, so you have all the key ingredients. What is required is organizers, right? They can totally connect you with Ethan, and they can help you sort of figure that out. So Startup Weekend is sort of your first entry point. If it works, Then there's something called Startup Weekend Next, right, which is a 5-week program on customer development. And if that works and you do your job right, then you have sort of white glove service to go into a global accelerator network, right, which is Techstars, right, Y Combinator kind of thing. So the roadmap for that exists now. And it's great that you mention it as a concern that you have, because that's something that already exists in Puerto Rico, right? The entire infrastructure for anyone to sort of figure out these ideas and validate them. And if they go through that process, they will focus on the 100% execution and actually figure out if their idea has any legs.
So we have time for one more question. Actually, I can't believe that we're all the way at the end. And I'm thinking there's a lot of resources that you guys have. I'm wondering, and I'm throwing this idea out there, you guys can shut me down, but I was thinking, is there a way of putting those resources together to all the conference attendants so that they can know all the things that you're talking about? What are the links, what are the books, etc. So perhaps that would be a good way to just, so that you guys can link directly to that. To your question.
Yes, my name is Lenny Olivera. I'm a Puerto Rican psychologist who I'm now resident in New Haven, Connecticut, but I used to live for the past 4 years in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I moved there directly from Puerto Rico, and when I arrived there, it seemed like another planet, in the sense that no companies, all companies were completely different. Even for cell phone companies, they had Bell and Rogers, which are non-existent in the United States. In every aspect, it's been really, really different. But most Latin American countries had a felt presence in businesses, in restaurants like Peru, Chile, Mexico, even for tourism. Dominican Republic, Cuba had a lot of tourism market, or in Toronto and all that, but nothing from Puerto Rico. I was quite shocked at the lack of presence. What it was, since Canada is relatively close to Puerto Rico, it's just on north of United States. Are there any ideas or considerations you could shed on maybe expanding the presence of Puerto Rico in the business of Canada, in collaborations or something like that?
I don't know about, my sister is married to a Canadian who's lived in Puerto Rico for the last 12 years. He was involved with Gianpaolo. He came down like as an engineer. There are actually a lot of Canadians living in Puerto Rico. They love it, like the beach lifestyle and whatnot. My sister is married to one, and he's great. And we've talked about this, not at length, but we've toyed with the idea, and there's incredible potential. We've actually, we were at one point talking about even doing something with asphalt, starting an asphalt company, and we had some Canadian companies come down, meet with us, and that we're going to invest, and whatnot. There's movement in that direction. I want to see more of it. I think there's incredible potential. Great things happening in Canada. He's actually from the Montreal region, so for Quebec itself, a lot of them are coming to Puerto Rico and working there, but I agree with you that I don't think it's translating into businesses really kind of creating long-term partnerships, but there is movement in that direction, especially in terms of bigger infrastructure projects like Tren Urbano and stuff like that. Canadian companies are bidding on those projects. They don't always get them. They compete a lot with Spanish companies and obviously American companies, but I'd like to see more. I don't know. I'm interested in that.
So what I would say is, how can we help you build the first Puerto Rican Canadian company? Right? You're there already. You have the contacts. It needs to be started, and we can get you everything else.
And Canada has built a great economic development program, and there's a lot of good tech people there too. So for resources, it's good. It's good. Also, you brought it because we think we've been talking all morning about South America, but definitely in the U.S. there's opportunity, specifically Hispanics for us, being Puerto Ricans, huge. It's like how many Hispanics now? 50 million, 55 million Hispanics in the U.S. But Canada, it's another place. We thought about it, but we're mainly focused on Latin America. But we knew that it was a great market to be on. So yeah, there's opportunity there.
Yeah, we didn't do a deep dive on it, but we've been talking about sort of startups and emerging companies and really all this sort of more global side, but the opportunity for Puerto Rico to compete in the U.S. market just on cost advantage alone is incredible. It's massive, right? So for example, I'm also sort of a lawyer, IP, and IP lawyers would sort of charge easily $1,000+ an hour, right? In Puerto Rico, they can charge $250, $300 an hour or whatever, and that'd be a crazy amount of money for lawyers in Puerto Rico, right? So, and we pump out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of world-class lawyers and world-class engineers. So, you know, you can build easily a service company. It doesn't have to be this sort of massive product company. You can build, right? And then, you know, Gabby will talk about it, and Haney can also sort of touch on it. But there's massive opportunity of building, you know, distribution companies, import-export operations from Puerto Rico. Why wouldn't you, right? You have, you know, free trade zones. One of the largest free trade zones in the Caribbean is just right there, just sitting there. You can just use it. You know, they have the tax incentives laws. You have all the world-class finance people in Puerto Rico. Now we have hedge fund managers, thanks to Gabby. So we have sort of massive access to capital markets as well. So, I mean, what do you need? You can sort of do it from Puerto Rico, take advantage of all that stuff.
One thing I'll say is like you never know where your market's going to come from. I get hundreds of hits every day. 30% of my traffic right now is in the U.S. So I'm already like tapping into that, and you know our goal is obviously to expand fully into the market. I get hundreds of hits every day from Memphis, Tennessee, and I don't know why.
That's because my dad lives there. That's probably why.
He must have told his friends, because I get hundreds of hits there. Like if I did a list of the top 10 states. Tennessee is probably number 5, which is amazing to me.
So we are out of time, and if I were to wrap this up, I think there's many key takeaways. I would say follow your passion and don't think first about money. Just do it. Am I missing something?
That's pretty much it.
We're here to help you. Puerto Rico is great. Let's build this economy. Let's build the relationship there. Let's rock and roll.
Send me an email. Like honestly, like if you have an idea, if you need help, like send me an email. I'll do whatever. I can't stand knowing that you're not able to do what you love. So I mean, I'll help you out if you need me to do it. Seriously.
And with that, please join me in thanking our panel.
All right, thanks again to our panelists and our moderator, Christine. This concludes our first panel. We're going to have a lunch break now. Since we ran over by 10 minutes, we will be meeting back here at 1:10. If you don't know the area, there are several lunch options. There's Chipotle and Cozy in Kendall Square. There's also a few restaurants in the Student Center. And just around the area in Kendall, there are a couple more high-scale, legal seafood, other restaurants if you're interested in that. Anyway, thank you, and we'll see you back here at 1:10.